皆さんお待たせしました。席に。
Thank you very much. Could you please back to your seats? Guests in Annex Hall, are you back to your seat? We have two auditorium today connected. Now we are going to start the last lecture today. Speaker is the laureate in the philosophy and arts, Mr. Tamasaburo Bando. Now, Mr. Tamasaburo Bando, please. Prior to the lecture, we would like to introduce to you the profile of Mr. Tamasaburo Bando's life. Mr. Tamasaburo Bando was born in 1950 in Otsuka, Tokyo. He was the youngest child of 5 brothers and sisters. Since his childhood, he immediately started dancing whenever he found clubs or cloth. Therefore, his parents recommended to learn dancing, so he started learning dancing at the earlier age. His parents ran a Japanese restaurant. His father was the master of the restaurant. His mother was in charge of counter, and they filled the family with affection and love. Mr. Tamasaburo was very much interested in performing dancing, and he became disciple to the Kanya Morita the 14th school, so entered into the kabuki world. Mr. Tamasaburo made a debut on the stage at the age of 7 years old in 1957. In 1964, he succeeded to the name of the 5th Tamasaburo Bando, so he became onnagata, that means the actor, to play the female roles. In 1969, he played a Princess Shiranui in The Moon Like a Drawn Bow. He captured the spotlight. And in 1975, in The Scarlet Princess of Edo, his popularity was incomparable. After that, he played Masaoka in Disputed Succession or Akoya of Courtesan Akoya. Those were the important roles to be played. He established a position as a leading actor. Tamasaburo-san's activity was beyond the boundary of Japan. In 1984, at the New York Metropolitan Opera Theater, he performed the Dancing of the Heron Maiden. That made the name of Tamasaburo widely known to the world. He co-performed with the Yo-Yo-Ma, the cellist, or danced together with Mikhail Borisnikov, a ballet dancer. So he is repeatedly co-performing with the first-class artists. He has a deep connection with the laureates in the history of the Kyoto Prize. The third laureate, director Andrzej Wajda, made a theater and a film called Nastasha, and he played a leading role. And Tamasaburo did a great job with the Maurice Béjart, who was the laureate in the 15th Kyoto Prize. One of the recent topics is the Peony Pavilion. That is the concours opera, that a classic drama in China. Tamasaburo performed the leading role in Chinese language. Other than that, Mr. Tamasaburo made the theatrical debut for the Western drama Shimpa in his 20s, and he directed and played the leading role in the film called Castle Tower, produced by Kyoka Izumi. And in Sado, there is the Kodo, that's the drum group. He is a director. Beyond the border of the kabuki or theatrical performance, he is always fascinating the audience. Mr. Tamasaburo set the message to work as a creative artist. have dream first and curiosity and work hard. If you are pursuing the way of artist, you have to devote your body and soul to what you love to do, and you have to see or closer look at your own capacity. For Kyoto, Mr. Tamasaburo said that in Kyoto, there are many things that only in Kyoto we can learn in art and handicrafts. And Kyoto is surrounded by the beautiful natural environment. That's the good environment to produce the art. Thank you. Today we have Mr. Tamasaburo Bando. Together with events in the course of his life, he is going to give us his philosophy. Now, his performing arts philosophy. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be the recipient of the 27th Kyoto Prize Laureate. Prior to this event, we got informed the programs for commemorative lecture, and 50 minutes was given for my time. And I'm very happy to receive the prize, but I had no experience to give lecture by myself alone. This is my new experience. But I have written many things in the past, and that will be integrated into today's lecture. You may ask why I have studied kabuki. When I was a child, I loved to move my body parts. I always loved to become something else other than myself. But I just pursued that dream. But as an adulthood, I cannot make my own living with that fun. Therefore, I learned expertise. I love to move the body. However, when I was 1 year and a half, I had a paralysis, pediatric paralysis. For 3 months, I was not able to walk at all. But it was fortunately the mild degree, so I regained some gait ability little by little. I told my life stories in the past. For the purpose of rehabilitation, my parents sent me to the Japanese dancing school. That is almost correct. But even before that, did I love to dance? Or after joining the dancing school, have I come to love dancing? Perhaps intuitively or as an instinct, inherently, I loved to dance. But in neighborhood, there was the dancing teacher, and that dancing teacher visited my house to teach me how to dance. I wanted to get more things. I wore another dress whenever I gripped the strings or the clubs or the cloth. Naturally, my body or all of the parts of my body started to move. When I became actor, I have dresses, costumes, or the hairdressing. I can enjoy various types of variation, and I just pursued my love. And then many people called me experts. So based on the necessity, I learned because I am called experts. Better to give you the views of life in my own thoughts. But I don't have that type of big things. I have enormous difficulty to get fused with other people in society. When I was a childhood, I was so much frightened in darkness. If I let alone in the buildings by myself alone, I couldn't resist the fear. When I talk with other people or having fun playing the games with other kids, and do you think I was comfortable? It was neither the happy moments. I don't know, perhaps I was inherently born with that type of character in nature. Then what is the best state for me? The moments that I can forget about myself. That were the moments that I played the somebody else's role. If I become somebody else, nobody's looking at me because everybody is looking at somebody else that I act. Therefore, I don't have to be embarrassed in showing by myself. That is the detached distance. And then through that role, I can observe the world and society. That's why always I tried to be somebody else. I learned how to perform on the theater. We can enjoy the liberated time detached from this world. That is the free time for myself in terms of soul. When I was grown up, then in the end, I had some understanding that always we are walking steadily by steadily towards death in one sense. When I was a small child, because of paralysis, I was not able to move my physical body. Therefore, from very, very early childhood, I had the understanding that my life will end sometime, and perhaps we will not be able to do the things that I want to do. That means that death notion was always close to me. Alongside with that death view, I think I have created my own way of living my lives. Many people say enjoy your time whenever we have the travel or at the dinner time, but enjoy your time, or that means that we will have time elapsed. Better to have happy moments. If all time axis is ultimately reaching the death by seconds, that is just subjective suffering if we are conscious about it. Therefore, if we have fun or concentrated in some of the things and then instantaneous, all the time span will elapse. So that's the case for my life. I didn't have the slow time, for example, for dinner, please enjoy your meal. But if we are enjoying the meal, we don't get conscious of time elapsed. I think that's the most wonderful moments when we live our own lives. That means slow flow of time is something difficult for me. Whenever I created something on the stage or I am thinking about the idea to produce something, time flies. And if we produced the drama and if we played in kabuki and I am projecting my body and soul into the role and myself is completely carried away on the stage, that is the happiest time for me. When I say dancing, it's not dancing with gravity pull for the whole body and the mind. Rather, I feel as if I am floating in the air, as if I am flying into the heaven. No constraints. Nobody is binding me to this physical world. That's very important. Worldview is very difficult to explain. I have lived in the very narrow or limited space of world that is called classic performing art. After 20 years old, I started to do my work in overseas and I went to school in overseas schools. From foreign countries, I had the recognition of my own country, of Japan. We had the different languages and the lifestyles are different. However, I also recognize the human mind is the same. We are the same all over the world. But one irrational feeling is perhaps human beings not the best living organism from the perspective of Earth. Because human beings gain the ability of intellect, knowledge, now we have the total misunderstanding. We are superior to the grand nature. We can control the natural mechanism. And that is a great mistake that mankind is making. That is the gap. And that is the discordance. And I feel the feeling that I cannot get fused with the societies in modern days. That is my worldview. Sometimes in drama, we have the worldview that is through the kabuki's drama. Also, we find a similar type of feeling for worldview. Always, we want to be active for better world. However, we cause pollution. We use money or the coins. Dealing with that money, we have the commercial trade. And then we will lose sight of the true way for human beings. Throughout the history, we have the evidence. In many of the countries, we had the events, difficult events, or wars broken out. That means that the human beings are the living organism or the species who cannot make any more progress. Sometimes we can be very pessimistic. We should select only the good things for the purpose of the future human beings. We should have self-reflection. We can improve our community, society, the world, but still we cannot do it. That is a suffering for the human beings. Why is that the case? So that was a big suffering. So my happy moment is whenever I forget those contradictions by embedding myself into art. What is the background? Why have I become kabuki actor? I didn't have any idea to want to become actor in kabuki. Unconsciously, when I noticed I was the kabuki actor, that's more appropriate. As I said, I love moving my bodies. I love theater or dancing on the stage. That's the only motivation to bring my body up to stage. When I was a weak child physically, my father and mother let me do all the things, let me say all the things. So I was a spoiled child. When I have been doing this work as a kabuki actor, my parents were so much worried about my future. So only hope that my parents thought about is that I should have some means to make livings. So the dancing would be the way that my talent will be displayed. So I became adopted. So my foster father trained me, and also my foster mother was the Japanese dancer. So strict training was given to me. Therefore, with this Kyoto Prize, I looked back my life. I didn't think about any other members of my family. I always thought about myself all the time. And such a prestigious award or the Kyoto Prize is given to me. I humbly feel that that's too much. I do not deserve it. So into the future, from now on, I have to do utmost efforts according to that philosophy. At the age of 14, I succeeded the name of Tamasaburo Bando. For the very first time, you are going to become professional, so that life will be tough. So that was a message from my foster father, Kanya Morita the 14th. But I didn't take it seriously. But I thought that, I'm going to be the professional. But in the late teens, I was given the important roles to play. And then I was just busy and devoting myself to the kabuki drama. And then I was over 30. My foster mother was the Japanese dancer of the Fujima school. Of course, foster father was a kabuki actor. And then dancing lessons were very strict, however, also for the manners in daily livings. And later, in retrospectively, I noticed that that's for the purpose of my future. My foster father passed away at the age of when I was 24. Always, my foster father taught me that you shouldn't get satisfied with the status of quo. Don't be good at any kinds of things. You should be good at particular things. And my seniors of the kabuki world said, don't show the play, don't try to act, but you should be just character. So I was happy because we had the greatest seniors and good lessons were given. But also, outside the world of kabuki, many people gave me the good lessons. One thing to remember, I acted Macbeth in the translated drama. Late Haruko Sugimura, the great actress in Japan, who I respect greatly, had a conversation going to the rehearsal, just 1 minute greetings. Nice seeing you again, Miss Sugimura. What are you doing? So I responded that I'm a kabuki actor, but I'm going to play the Lady Macbeth. Can I play this type of Shakespeare? And then Miss Haruko Sugimura said, I did the Tennessee Williams or the Macbeth Shakespeare. I played any kind of roles. You see, you are young, so you should do any kind of challenges. You should do it. However, not every kind of things, okay? Just 1 minute conversation. We were not taking seats, but that you should do any of the challenges, but it doesn't mean that you can do anything. For example, well, you should be concentrated, you should be sophisticated, or you have to select some of the things. She didn't say that type of the details, but in the very casual conversation, just on the walking way for the rehearsal, that has the profound depth in it. After I succeeded in name, I had lots of the roles, and for the 24 years old, I joined the Shimpa new school. That means that the kabuki is the old school. So even after the kabuki, we generated the new way of or westernized type of the drama, Nayagi Shotaro, or the first Yaeko Mizutani that made the establishment of the performing groups. And then realism-based performance was the good lesson because that is different from kabuki. By learning that perfection in roles in realistic way, I was able to play the roles of the cloistered flower of Yamato protects her kimono sleeve from the alien rain produced by Sawako Ariyoshi. When I was 10 years old, together with my foster father and the Utaemon Nakamura had the castle tower on the stage. And I looked at it and I was so moved. What was the story in that castle tower? I didn't have a good idea when I was a child. However, something not existing in this world are standing on this stage. Dark, though colorful, vivid, and drama is unfolded. And I was stunned, and I really wanted to play the castle tower later. In 1977, at the Nisei Theater, I played the leading role for the castle tower. I read the original text, and then I thought that what I imagined as an illusion, that was the reflection I got when I read the script. That was produced by Kyoka Izumi, and Kyoka Izumi produced many of the theatrical drama. Always, Kyoka Izumi's world is so noble and so solemn and very beautiful. And also, I was given the fortune to play the leading role in The Twilight Crane by Junji Kinoshita. In short, condensed words of Japanese, there are profound meaning in it. Now, let me talk about my foster father, Kanya, and his disciples. As I said before, On the left were bird in his palm. This is my foster father. He was a very tough father for me. He was not physically strong also. And when I became the adopted son at the age of 14, I think he was hurry in giving me all the lessons. Whenever he was awake, always thought of the clothing, or when I eat, how to use chopsticks, always the details were instructed. I didn't care. However, always my foster father said, your manner in everyday's activity will be on the stage. Naturally, that emerges. So that's why he gave me a lot of detailed instruction. And he always said that complacency is forbidden. You shouldn't have the conceit. You shouldn't get overconfident. For the onnagata or the female, not because of your beauty, not because of your ability, or onnagata or the female roles is rare number. So usually onnagata will get the important roles at earlier stage. So don't be overconfident. Every day he told me. And also one message that I cannot forget from father is that whenever we do the new play or when we see the new things, and then we talk that what's departure from the old form, that's avant-garde, that's good. And then whenever there are other people, my foster father said that's good. But when he faced me, Shinichi, you see the departure from old form? If you have form, you can depart it. But you just have the chatting with the other ones. And that was the departure from the old form. No, there is no form. So you should have your form properly. And then you can discuss the possibility deviation of the old form. I didn't get that understanding, but after he passed away, now I really do understand what he meant. He was tachiyaku, to play the male role, and I was onnagata, that's mean the female role. That was the education from my father. My father didn't have so many opportunities to learn how to act from his father. So my grandfather, that means his father, told the roles to other disciples. So that's a lesson that would direct instruction or teaching from father to son is no good. So if you want to learn, you should listen to other person who got lessons from our grandfather. So therefore, for the character making, my father didn't give me any specific advices. But he is the male actor, so he gave me the good advices that as a female actor, how to consider the male actor. And then again, for the lukewarm water to wash my face, that should be lukewarm, not too hot or not too cold. And that should be adjusted. And for the clothes, and then in winter, clothes should be put on the sunny spot so that it can be warm, and the other way around in summer. And Bando, Tamon, and Yagoro, so those were the disciples. And in Kabuki world, there are caretakers in the same generation of my foster father. For example, they gave us a lot of lessons of the ancestors or the older forms. So that is the Kabuki world, and they have the duty to develop or raise the younger Kabuki actors. So Yagoro or Tamon, they are disciples of my foster father, but they were in the same generation with me. And two of them said, well, the actor, we should have the depth or significance in it, not just the surface shape. For example, calligraphy, there is seeping or fainted color, or the curve, natural curve. And sometimes we can find the meaning or significance when we have the fainted color or the curve. So that should be the point that actors should learn. And the Tamon was also the female actor. So attitude, for example, how to pull up the tails of kimono, or the place or position of the Japanese belt, obi, or we have a lots of tools or the papers in a bosom, or how to hold this, where to have those position. All the details impossible to write down were given to me before the performance, after the performance, when I removed the makeup on the dressing, always sitting next to me, and every day they gave me the detailed advice. Roundness or depth, important, and the size or the gracefulness or dignity in a way is required for leading role. For example, we pull up the tail of the kimono. If that angle is too acute, that's not elegant, not round enough. That is, that softness of the female is not expressed. So you should do it more softly, even invisible way, in elegant way, to pull up the tail. Even though you have the form of yourself, don't show up that form. Even though you have the good voice on that day, don't try to make audience listen. You shouldn't depend too much on the technique in details. So those were the lessons given to me. I have cherished all those instructions given to me somehow. Rather, I would say that naturally those words given to me come up. I cannot forget those. That means conclusion at this stage is that what is the way to become actor? We learn how to play or the form and so on, but when we perform on the stage, we shouldn't make audience feel that he has well practiced. We shouldn't give some explanatory elements. We should be on the stage as if we are not acting. Just somebody appears and vanishing from stage. I think that's the thing that we should deliver to the audience. Especially in kabuki, we have the conveyance of the message among the actors. Sometimes if the face is not well shaped, they cannot do the actor. Well, that is not the shape. That means that the face, that means that the cosmetic performance. So makeup is very important, but not beautiful makeup. The makeup should be appropriate, perfect in the role, in the drama play, so that the actor for that role should play in perfect way. And we shouldn't make a mess in dressing. We make up in front of the dresses. That means that the mirrors and also the dressing table is called kesho mae in Japanese, in kabuki. And if there is the powder or foundation but spilled over, or the lipstick, all those are scattering around. So there's no way for that person to be the good actor. For craftsmen are making the beautiful things, and that's of course the natural thing to do. Always we should have the good organized dressing or any other furnitures. So that was the good lesson conveyed to me over the generation. I concentrated on my work so that my dressing should be always clean or cleaner than anybody else's. But through those works, sometimes I can learn something.
I am Onnagata. Why do we have the tradition of Onnagata in the Orient in particular? Let me talk about that subject. I think it's difficult to put this into theory, but the kabuki is said to have begun with the Izumo no Okuni. And on top of that, it is said that kabuki started in Kyoto. As a matter of fact, the Izumo no Okuni had strong relations with the Tokugawa family, and she had much education, and she was able to display her Nembutsu Odori in front of the Tokugawa family at the Edo Castle. And she has been known even till today as the founder of Kabuki, precisely because of the importance of her existence. Before in Kabuki, women were allowed, but it's about 350 years where the Onnagata performance has become the mainstream. Counting from Okuni Kabuki, we have marked 400 years or so of Kabuki history in 2003, especially when men started to perform female roles, especially for those classics such as Sagi Musume or Dojoji. The perfected Kabuki, where adult male actors perform in females, it's about 250 years. Onnagata in Kabuki. Why do we see that sort of role in the Orient, and in particular in Japan? In ancient Greece, in Middle Europe, in the Middle Ages, there were such female roles played by men as well, but mostly young boys were playing the role of females. And I still do not have a clear outlook as to how I could pass on that tradition to our future generation, but I hope I can do my best to convey what I have learned from my seniors to the future generation. I think the role of and the mission of a Kabuki actor, I believe, is to give a place of peace of mind for mankind to overcome various difficulties. It reminds me of Europe. And having listened to the two lectures before me, in Europe, there are opera houses where ballet or opera or theatrical performances are put on the stage, like Shakespeare. There are special academies or schools for actors. In Japan, there are courses for classics in universities, but there are no theatrical schools for traditional performing arts in Japan. And so, if possible, I hope that we will be able to see that sort of a school come into existence sometime in the future. Much of the performance has been orally transmitted, and Japanese dance as well as musical performances have been handed down over generations by direct teaching from seniors to juniors. But I think classics may be losing its ground in present-day Japan. And I think there is a risk that we might lose the thick thread of tradition that we were able to continue to support. So in that sense, I think we need to do more to think how professionally we are able to create such an environment to breed the environment that supports traditional performing arts and classics. Next, I'd like to talk about kabuki performance or acting. We need to talk about traditional form in kabuki. Over the years, the traditional form has settled down to what is thought to be the best for the particular drama or play or for a period piece. most efficient, simple way of performing, I believe, has brought about the traditional form. 350 years ago, 250 years ago, the current form probably did not exist as such. I think they have become more and more sophisticated over the years. I have been asked in various interviews this time, are you going to pass on the classic tradition to the future generation? Are you just going to pass on what you have learned without any change? And to that, I have said, I cannot answer either way. For example, kabuki, which used to be performed under candlelight, is now being performed in a very big stage like this. And of course, there are bound to be changes. But from the time when that drama or play had been written, there must be some universal spirit and soul written into that drama. And perhaps the way of acting or performance may change in order to relay the message of the spirit or the soul of the drama more appropriately to the current day audience. Of course, when I go to traditional forms, unless I perform myself, I cannot describe that in words in great detail. So let me skip the detail. As a matter of fact, tomorrow I will perform, actually. But it makes it rather difficult for me to convey the details without actually performing, so let me skip that. Now, kabuki up till today had been passed on to us from pre-war years and through the post-war years from the generation of our fathers. We have lost many of the fine kabuki actors from the latter half of Showa to the Heisei period. However, we still have their performance recorded in video and other forms. But trying to perform by learning from the video recordings is rather difficult. We would just try to imitate or copy the forms and traditional forms without understanding the true spirit of the particular roles. And therefore, I tried to take a memo about what they convey to us. I think it's okay to have different approaches to performance and acting in taking up the role. If you just do not miss the soul and spirit of the role for which it has been written. I think kabuki has borrowed from bunraku, puppet theater, or from Noh theater. Tsuruya Namboku, Kawatake Mokuami has had written various dramas where the animals have changed themselves, transformed themselves to humans, or there were dual characters, or other exciting drama have been written. Anything, I think, is possible if it moves the audience. And I think in order to do that, approaches could be different if you don't just miss the soul and spirit of that role that you're playing. We do have period plays as well. Period plays, it's very difficult to explain what period plays are, but just to give you an outline of what it is. Performing a figure in a period play is where you try to act historic figures whom you have never met before, whom you have never seen before, and just by having these figures appear on stage, you must give the impression that there is no explanation needed in understanding that figure. The actor appears on stage with the temporal and spatial environment, which is instantly understood by the audience. And if that could be accomplished, that is the mission for period play. The fact that the actor appears on stage with the temporal and spatial aura or milieu of that period would mean that the actor would need to be well familiar with the particular era or the period in question by reading books and studying the period, so that the actor can appear with that milieu or atmosphere that instantaneously the audience would understand that historical figure and the background of the historical period. You need to do the right makeup, you need to have the right costume, you need to behave appropriately, the hairdo, how you walk, how you move, the combination of music, the other cast and actors surrounding the main figure and actor. And when the curtain goes up, all of a sudden the audience is brought back 200 years ago, 300 years ago, or even 1,000 years ago if it was the tale of Genji. And I think that is the true success of a period play. And if that can continue up to the end of the play, the audience will be able to enjoy the historical period of 200 years or 300 years or 1,000 years ago for that 2 or 3 hour period. I'd like to talk about what I have learned from pictures and paintings. I'm quite tall. I was born quite tall. So perhaps I'm taller by 15 or 20 centimeters beyond what a female role actor is required. In other words, probably it would be better if I was shorter by 15 centimeters or 20 centimeters in order to be a true female role actor. And I used to be called a match, just appearing on stage because I was so skinny and thin and tall. Onnagata is a male actor acting the female role by behaving like a woman. And finally, the female image is depicted by how you move and act on stage. I also tried to learn and imagine what a beautiful woman was like from Japanese paintings. The paintings from the Edo period was a good teaching material. I have studied ukiyo-e printings. In my teens, when I started to come on stage, I was tall, I was thin, I had a small head. I probably was not considered to be a good female role actor. And it was then that I have met the so-called beautiful women's image in ukiyo-e, or the Mikaeri vision of beauty looking back, or in Harunobu's printing, there were slender women being depicted and painted, or Uemura Shoen of Kyoto, or during the Taisho era, Yumeji Takehisa also painted women. And I think the slender women depicted in those paintings were considered to be beautiful. And I thought it would be nice if I could express the beauty of such women on stage by myself, not just copying them. The paintings are just paintings. They are exaggerations. There are some image like Mikaeri Bijin or Beauty Looking Back. That is so unnatural, so that it's very difficult for me to take the same pose. I just wanted to look at the expressions, the lines of the body, and try to understand them and see how I could act that on stage. So I have learned from my seniors as well as from Edo era paintings. Let me talk about my feelings about color. Even before becoming a kabuki actor, I had strong feelings about colors. Of course, combining different colors would bring about different impressions. It's very important to think about combinations of colors. And by combining different color costumes, you will be able to express different roles. I think back to the age when I was 5 or 6. During the high economic growth period, we used to see fluorescent lamps being used more and more in Japan. Up till then, I was just used to be exposed to light bulbs and ordinary lamps. But when I was 5 or 6, my true father came back with a fluorescent lamp, and he put on the fluorescent lamp in my house. And the inside of the house or the room turned out to be totally different from what I used to be seeing. And I asked the father to not use the fluorescent lamp, but to go back to the ordinary light bulb again. And so he agreed to that, and we continued to live with incandescent lamps. But I'm not only talking about lamps, but there is a sunlight. During the night time, the performance were given in candlelight. I think performers and artists should try to look at true colors under natural light and not under artificial light. Of course, fluorescent lamps have become a mainstream in Japan since then, but that is making it difficult for us to choose the right color. Let me also touch upon the theater. Wooden theaters, of course, are something that we cherish a lot. During the Edo period, there were 500 to 1,000 large and small theaters. There were theaters with a capacity of 500 to 1,000, but nowadays it is becoming larger and larger. And the stage is becoming larger as well. It takes time to walk on the stage. If you have 60 people on stage, you would need more time in order for the play to be performed. So I think we should go back and re-examine those days when the theaters used to be much smaller in capacity. Going back to my memory about the Kabukiza Theater, the Kabukiza Theater is now being renovated. The new building will resume performances in 2 years' time, and I'm very much looking forward to what sort of performance I could play. I have enjoyed going on the rotating stage or revolving stage or the stage as elevator coming up from the trap cellar. I have also had a chance to play in the Chinese play. And that was made possible for me while I was studying the Beijing opera performer, Mei Langfang. I'm truly privileged and honored that I have been supported by many people. Andre Weider, Peter Brooks, Pina Bausch, all of them have been good friends of mine, Mr. Tamo Yoshida as well. And when we think about the kind of theater and performance that we are able to give in the future, of course, I would need to alert my juniors about the importance of continuing with the tradition. And I also need to be supervising, perhaps, try not to perform personally too much, but to give further effort in handing down the tradition. Let me talk about the sea. I love the sea. In order to maintain my body, I visit the sea quite often. Dr. Sunyaev gave a lecture in which I was interested in learning about the space development because I like science and math myself, and I was less good at humanities like literature and the Japanese language, and probably all I read in terms of books were drama, plays. But when I go to the sea, I can forget everything. And I am able to relax and think about other things. Let me also talk about Kyoto as well. Kyoto, for me, was rather limited in my young days as the theater and the surrounding area. I came in touch with Gion and Pontocho and with the Geiko and Maiko. And while I was having fun, I forgot about the outside world of Kyoto. In other words, for me, when I was young, I was so engrossed in performing on stage, I did not have the time to travel around Kyoto. Kyoto, for me, in my young age, was somewhat at a distance. But in my 40s, I was able to find a new Kyoto where I was able to find friends and acquaintances of the same generation, the craftsmen, painters, temple monks, restaurant owners, weavers. They were now the same generation supporting the tradition of Kyoto, and I have found new friends and acquaintances among these people. I have learned from them the deep side of Kyoto, which I was not able to ask my great seniors in my young age. I was able to see how fine cloth were woven, how fine pottery or ceramics were created, and be able to enjoy the historical temples, and was able to come in touch with the source of the Japanese culture and tradition through encounters with these people. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Now we are going to present a flower bouquet to Laureate, Mr. Tamasaburo Bando. once again, big applaud to Mr. Tamasaburo Bando. That was Mr. Bando Tamasaburo-san. How was today? We had the lectures from 3 laureates. Still, we have the resonance of the messages, and we happen to have the raining today. It will deepen the color of the colored leaves in autumn of this year. I do hope that this will intensify the colorfulness of your life. That is my sincere wish, and we would like to conclude today's events of the commemorative lecture. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much, and please come back to Kyoto Prize next year. For the receivers, please leave the receiver on your seat. And for questionnaire sheet, there will be the collection box at the exit, so please submit those. Today is rainy and it's slippery, so please watch out your steps and have a nice day. Thank you.
「ご案内いたします。ご使用になられましたレシーバーは座席に置いたままお帰りください。また、ご記入いただきましたアンケートにつきましては、お帰りの際に回収箱にお入れください。繰り返しご案内いたします。ご使用になられましたレシーバーは必ず座席に置いたままお帰りください。本日はご来場いただき、誠にありがとうございました。お気をつけてお帰りください。